Who put their hands up? I'm going to the bar, so. Well, hi. How do I get this to work?
No, we're just rebooting the. But try again.
Okay.
He wants to go to the bar.
I'm Bob McLellan, and I'm very pleased to be here. I've got to say, I'm going to give a few words of what's happened in my life, and I guess a lifetime in Corrugated. But I've got to say, as I look around this room and look at the people who are here, you all know more than I do. So these are reflections. I come here with 3 badges. I'm a non-executive director of Loxton, a non-executive director of McLellan's, and a non-executive director of Swanline. So my view is that I don't switch the light out anymore. Why I now actually interfere. I interfere, that's my job, to give advice, to be non-partisan, to challenge and to question strategy. That's what I'm about. I'd like to say I think the SPA have done a fantastic job. One of the most important things I think in this industry is to have stewardship. And I think stewardship is very important, that each one of you has a role to play. Don't be at home, don't hide, you have a stewardship. So you're a member of the SPA, fantastic. Be a member of the CPI and watch what the CPI do. You're associated to the CPI. You've heard what FEFCO do, so please keep contact with FEFCO. There's something called SIPPA, which is the smaller organisations converters in Europe. So all these are important areas that sometimes in the rush and the hustle and bustle of life, people say, I haven't got time to deal with. But you have an important role. Well, I learnt some years ago with, I have to say with some humility, that I'm in fact, can you move on? How do I get this to work? Does this work? There we are. That I'm no longer immortal. I thought I'd live forever, and about 5-6 years ago I thought, a lot of people I know are passing on, so I better watch what I do. I've worked in glass, I've worked in plastics, I've worked in engineering, and I've worked in paper and corrugated. I've never had a career. I've just done my best to do the job I do as best as I can, and I think that's very important. So I've worked for United Glass, I've worked for Reed, Corrugated Cases, Abbey, Smiths, and a few others. So work hard with a bit of sweat on the brow. So this is, I think this conference is called 100 and not out, 40 and not out. My wife says it's not a sexy industry. She is not very happy. When I was in the glass industry, I used to look at the base of a bottle, that's called a punt, to see where the bottle had been made. And now I go into supermarkets and rip the case apart to see who made it. And now I look at print, and my wife says, what are you doing? So she says it's not sexy. I don't agree with her. Go on. So what makes a good business? You all know this. Clear focus, determination. Understand that cash is king. Know your market. I can give you some statistics. They're a bit boring. 85,000 people in the UK in packaging generally. I don't just say the small corrugated bit or the fiberboard bit or plastics, in packaging. And Angelica made a very good point, which I'll come back to later. Without packaging, where are we? So clear focus. UK, it represents packaging 3% of manufacturing industry and 11 billion of sales. So it's very, very important. And of course, we are the green economy. 60% of used packaging is recycled. Packaging. And for paper, as you can see, it's into the 80%. So we've got a great story to tell. I'll get it right. We get very concerned with internal issues. We get very concerned with what I call the bureaucracy of the day-to-day. But actually what we mustn't forget is it's about our customers. And we must remember that. And I think sometimes we forget the customer is king. But we can influence that customer. And we can talk about our product. I've never taken the view that we should knock somebody else's product. But we should take the view that our product is green. Our product gives all the environmental issues that we've heard this afternoon. It's about design and innovation, not me too. And how do we know whether we're satisfying our customers? Do we do customer surveys? Do we have customer satisfactions? It's very straightforward. But lots of companies don't do that. Do we see our customers, or do we just say we see our customers? Do we talk to our customers? Do we really engage with them? I know in this modern world, people use emails, people use social media. Social media is good, but actually talk to your customer, because sometimes people won't, in a 5-minute conversation, they'll tell you more than they'll ever put on an email. You might think I'm a dinosaur on that issue, and I maybe am. But actually, I think it's pretty important to understand that. So, I've done that one. I'll go the right way. Do we earn enough? I'm not talking about salaries. I'm not talking about wages. I'm talking about, do we earn enough in terms of profit? And I always tell this little tale. If you ask employees, how much do they think we should be making? You'd be amazed at what they say. And I have used the old, I'm sure you all heard it. If you were making something in your garage and you sold it for £100, how much profit do you think you should make? Nobody ever says £4, £3, £2, £5, £6. People come up with big numbers, £20, £25. And when we look at where we are as an industry, I think we've got a lot to learn. So, are we hell-bent on volume, or are we really talking about value? I will get it right. So, what are our skills? What are our core products? Are we in paper? Are we in sheet? Are we in boxes? Are we about print? Are we about logistics? Or are we about service? Or are we about all of those things? I think the skills are different. Doesn't matter if you're in all of them, but you better be clear about why you're in all of them and not dip in and out. Be an expert. They are different. They are different skills, and I don't think you can be all things to all men unless you're a very, very large organisation. Are we a commodity? And I hear this, it just makes me really angry when I hear people say it's a commodity. We are not a commodity. Is sand a commodity? You can get it delivered by the load, 50 tons. You can get it delivered in a bag. You can get it silver sand. You can get it for your child's playground. You can get it to fill in cracks. It's not a commodity. So, is our box a commodity? When do you want the box? What print do you want on the box? How many? In what quality? I get angry. It is not a commodity. If it's a commodity, it's because you make it such. So, to me, our product is a sales tool, it's a marketing tool, it's a protector of the product, and that's very important. It's a transit pact, it's a collator. It is not all things to all men. It's different each time, but it is not a commodity. So, where are we? And this is really what I feel quite strongly about as well. where are we on the scale? Are we dark satanic mill? And I think about this quite a lot. I'm concerned about this because you look at some factories, and when I joined the industry, there were some dreadful factories that I would not want my children to work in. So where are we on that spectrum? I think we have to have clean factories. Yes, I heard somebody said something, I think it was you, Andrew, about health and safety. Health and safety is very important. I wouldn't want anybody to leave work damaged in any way at all. And some factories really worry me. So where are you on that dark satanic mill spectrum? Tidy, clean, light, warm. Would you have your children work in that factory? If the answer is no, you should ask yourself, why not? So what will the future bring? I was thinking about this. When I started in industry, because I regard it as manufacturing industry, there were lots of things that were very different to what they are now. There was post-war rationing. People were worried about the Cold War, were worried about whether or not you'd be blown up by an A-bomb. There were no colour TVs, there were no TVs. There were phones. We used to share a phone box at the end of the road. There were no adding machines. You had to do mental arithmetic. Not quite quill pens, but not far off it. When I joined the corrugated industry, we used to cut stereos by hand. I'm sure quite a few people here will remember that. In the glass industry, you used to lubricate the machines by a mop with oil on. And you know, these were machines that were going 120 meters, 120 per minute. And they were very, very quick. And if you wrote a letter, you got a reply saying they received the letter. 3 days later, you'd get a response that it was being looked into, and a week later you might get the reply that you were looking for. So things are much quicker. Print was John Bull, this side up, no hooks, no handles. We could make misogynist jokes, and nobody laughed, what they did. But nowadays you'd be shot for it. There were typesetters in the print industry. Now it's computer to plate. There were letterpress. Any of you here remember the letterpress printers? And then we went to basic flexo. And then we had corrugators. I remember the early corrugators, control-ins, which were 1.2 meters wide, 60 meters a minute if you were lucky. Litho was only for magazines. So it was a pretty strange and different world. So what will the future bring? Where are we going to be in the next 20 or 30 years? Well, artificial intelligence has got to play a very big, big role. I've never understood why machines go wrong and we have to manually adjust them to make them right. Why don't they automatically adjust? There are some machines that started to do that, but we're miles away from, we are going to have cars that drive themselves. Why don't we have machines that drive themselves? And of course, what does that mean for us? What does it mean for our employees? What employees? And of course, you can say, well, robotics are already with us, and they are. There's no question about that. But we're not at the level that we could be. And I don't know where we're going to be in the next 20 years, but it's going to be a very different, and in the next 40 years, a very different spectrum to what we have today. And of course, with smaller boxes, we're going to have individually printed boxes, individualization of our products, and I think that's going to happen quicker than most people think. And the discussion that we've all had today, are we evil to the environment? It's a big selling. It's a big sell. We are not evil to the environment. we have a fantastic problem, fantastic, absolutely brilliant product. I would never fight about others. There are things that are always going to be better in glass. I think there's always going to be things that are better in cartons, and I still have that, John, cartons, Corrugated. There are things that are always going to be better in aluminium, tin cans, or whatever. Plastics, I totally agree. I'm with the Blue Planet on plastics. But I think we have to be intelligent about this. Plastics will never go, will not disappear. And we have to remember that if we didn't use plastics on some food products, there would be a lot more waste. So you have to have a big question mark about how we manage that. So we have a magnificent story to tell. I have great sympathy for Extinction Rebellion. I think they are doing a great job. I wouldn't go and block London, but I have a great sympathy for what they're trying to do. And the reason I have a great sympathy is because everybody feels that we're hopeless, that there's nothing we can do. But there is, if we all did, and I think your program for schools was fantastic, you know. If all of the people in this room, 100 people, went into 3 schools each, that's 300. How many people are in the school? So we can all do our little bit, and we mustn't just think it's hopeless. And it gets to the point where people do think it's hopeless, and you have Extinction Rebellion in London, and I have great sympathy. So we have a great story to tell. Inkpen did many years ago, and somebody mentioned it, I think it was Angelica earlier, what would happen if there was no product? If there was no packaging products, go into a supermarket, and what the film actually showed was you went into a supermarket, all the packaging disappeared. And you had oil running down the shelves, you had broken eggs, you had, just imagine, just shut your eyes and think about no packaging at all. It would be a disaster. So packaging, in my view, is still very, very key to our society. And we should shout about it. And our product, is not evil to the environment. So, what can we do about it? I'll get it right at the end. Who are our politicians? Who are our politicians? I'd ask the question. They're not, first of all, they're not a super race. In fact, they're very flawed individuals. And a lot of them are on ego trips. And it seems to me a lot of them live in a parallel universe. So, why don't we get them to our businesses? Take them to your business. Talk to them about real things. Show them what goes on in your factories. They talk about, and there is a lot of greenwash, they talk about carbon offsetting. What's carbon offsetting mean? It means somebody else takes your problem. I just cannot understand how that can be made logical. They know when you go through it what the facts are, and it becomes, the words I use, a cognitive dissonance. They know it, but they won't hear it because it doesn't fit their own particular views. There's talk now that 25% of the UK arable land will be planted, they will plant trees in to carbon offset. Huh? I just don't believe it. And if you carbon offset, one of my favourite subjects is aeroplanes and air flights and doubling of the size of Heathrow. If you actually carbon offset that, you have to take it from somewhere else. Where are you going to take it from? You either buy carbon credits, which somebody else, and you can't really trace that. It's just impossible to trace it. And you'll do some deal with some foreign country, and you can't judge that. You can't measure it. And to me, it means either manufacturing has to shrink even more than it is in this country to carbon offset, and yet politicians still talk about carbon offsetting. So get your MP down. Ask them what they're doing for us. Try and annoy them. Wake them up. It's absolutely essential, and if you don't, nobody will do it for you. So our politicians need to be trained. Finally, our employees. Do we love them? Do we trust them? Do we like our people? They will let us down, here and there. A bit like families, you have to get over that, and you have to do something different. It fascinates me when you talk to people who work in our factories, who do very ordinary jobs, and you talk to them about what they do outside work. And they do fantastic things. I always feel very humble when I hear some of the things people do outside. And I think, how do you do that? That's brilliant. I never knew you could do that. Do we encourage people to use those skills in the workplace? Or do we say, I'll tell you what, park your brain outside in the cloakroom and just come in and work on this machine. I don't want to hear anything from you except get that machine working. So do we engage them? Do we get them participating? Old words. Do we empower them, or are they totally disinterested? My view is what you end up with is what you deserve, and actually you can get people involved in your business. So, there's some reflections. You all know it all. I'm not telling you anything you don't know.
You did it on purpose.
Left, right
You
hand.
did it on purpose.
So, finally, is it fun? And if it's not fun, quit it. Keep a sense of humour, because if you don't have a sense of humour, if you walk around and allow the weight of the world to make you feel terrible, it will be terrible. I think we should be so optimistic about the product we've got. I think we should be so optimistic about what the future brings that I think it's a great time to be in the packaging and particularly the corrugated cardboard industry. Thank you.